In this world, is art only considered beautiful if it looks aesthetically pleasing to those that view it? Or does beauty go deeper than that? At least it is true that Berserk is undoubtedly something beautiful, even transcending the label of art. So, I'm thoroughly convinced that Berserk is one of the best works of human art ever created. Not only for its nuanced perspectives on human relationships and philosophy, its artwork, its storytelling, world building, but for just how far above the label of art it goes. Since its debut in the 90s, it's gone on to have multiple adaptations, inspire a massive franchise of games, many works of fiction, and latch itself into the hearts of many readers, including myself. I read through its 40 volumes and 357 chapters in a week, completely enthralled in its clutches from start to finish, and I'm a full-time student, okay? I got shit to do, but it's that good. Pages bled into each other, panels disappeared, and I'm pretty sure I started hallucinating the sounds of swords clashing and characters talking. By the end of the 40th volume, I was literally in the platoon pose, yelling and giddy after finishing my journey, knowing there's still more to come. I have never been so fully immersed in something, and I just want to celebrate that, damn it. So in this video, I'm gonna go over its history, its enigmatic creator, the original manga, the 97 anime, Dark Souls, and why I think it's so personally significant to so many, including myself. I'm gonna try my hardest not to spoil anything major, but if you'd rather be hyper safe, please do yourself a favor, start reading Berserk and stick with it, okay? Alright, are you ready to go Berserk? That was too obvious, wasn't it? Berserk, the strongest fantasy comic, is a fantasy epic and follows Guts, a swordsman on a quest for ultimate vengeance. It's set in a medieval world with thousands of years of history. Kings and their wars, demons, witches, monsters, and a world undergoing a massive shift on the brink of total social collapse. Berserk manages to capture an overarching sense of gothic doom perfectly. Berserk was made by Kentaro Miura and began its run in 1989, with a prototype being first released in 1988. It started off as a student project, but after the release of 4 volumes published by Jets Comics, it got a serialized slot in Young Animal. Not a magazine for young people. Young Animal published manga geared to an older audience that would suit Berserk's more mature themes and hyperviolence. In 2003, Dark Horse Comics picked up Berserk for an English translation. Since then, it's gone on to sell over 40 million copies and receive universal acclaim. Kentaro Miura is a bit of an enigma. There's virtually no information about him. He's taken over a dozen hiatuses, some lasting years. Interviews are rare because he mostly spends his time playing Idol Master. Either way, the man is nothing short of a genius. Not only is he responsible for the story of Berserk, but he's also responsible for the art. His art is hyper-detailed, stylized, and shows off boatloads of talent. The sheer amount of work that's put into his art is staggering. Some of these panels look like they belong in a museum. Miura is also very well read when it comes to his art. Some of his panels make reference to famous works. And even though Berserk isn't finished, and the rate at which Miura puts out new chapters is slowed down significantly, I have nothing but respect for this man. At his peak, he worked 15 to 16 hours a day, no breaks, no holidays. He worked through hospitalizations and injuries. In some ways, his own blood has been shed in this series. So what is it that makes Berserk's story so compelling? Besides the outstanding action sequences that practically read themselves, the thought-provoking commentary on philosophies of living, and the close attention to detail in this expansive world that comes to life from the page, at the heart of Berserk are its characters. Over the course of its progression, the main cast evolves in a way that makes them believable and lifelike. I remember at one point while reading, I felt kind of creepy because it felt like I was just looking in on a group of regular people interacting with each other. Like I was barging in on some kind of sacred moment that friends were sharing with each other. And it was kind of uncanny. I think that's something Berserk does really well. After a certain point, the chemistry the characters have between each other makes simply observing their dynamics a sheer joy. There was this one stretch of Berserk where, for a few chapters in a row, it was just the group interacting with each other. The plot wasn't really being furthered or anything, but I didn't care because I found myself more invested in the characters as tangible people than the plot. I kinda just wanted to hang out with them myself. I found myself laughing along with their jokes, feeling angry with their rage, and even crying with their grief. There's so much depth among the simple interactions between these characters, and these little moments are the moments I find myself appreciating the most, looking back on Berserk. I found myself caring for these characters as though they were people I might actually know, which only amplified my investment in the story overall. During scenes where lives were at risk, I found myself holding my breath, because I knew in the world of Berserk life was a delicate thing, and it wouldn't be the first time a character was killed off. There's this one arc where the characters Farnese and Shirka travel through the dreams of another character, and man, I was just glued to the pages, afraid to make a sudden movement, and I had to do a double take because I realized I was feeling genuine human concern for squiggly lines and speech bubbles. Each character evolves and progresses. You can see them grow and mature from their journey before your very eyes. No character is static. Their goals, desires, opinions, they all change and mutate with the world of Berserk in a way that I've almost never seen in any other work of fiction. And even if you don't like a character at first, I can almost promise you that they will grow on you by the end of Berserk. There were a few characters I just couldn't stand at first, but Mira pulled a fast one on me because, wait, what happened? When did I start liking this character? Case in point being Farnese, who I now think is one of the most well-rounded and interesting characters in the story, and her journey is one of the most purest forms of redemption I've ever seen. There is an outlier depending on who you ask, Puck, and some would actually argue that he devolves to nothing more than comedic relief, which is true in some sense because Puck has much more depth in his earlier arcs. Also, I think he's hilarious, and yes, that is a hill I'm dying on. Okay, so now let's take these outstanding characters and let's put them in a world that dedicates almost every single panel to revealing more about itself through visual storytelling. I mean, just wow. This is a living, breathing world, and yet it doesn't reveal too much about itself. It gives you just the right amount of mystery to keep you hooked. The monsters you encounter, the political campaigns and brutal wars that mimic our own world, the lore, the scenery, the ambiance, it all comes together in this explosion of beauty. And yet things are obviously falling apart. The chaos of this world is captured brilliantly by Miura's art style. There's this undertone of madness and otherworldliness. It's a looming sense of lethargy and miasma, and it makes quite an impression on you. Berserk isn't just about killing big monsters and demons, or exploring a fantastical and dangerous world. At its core, it's a human story about true love, friendship, and goals. And if you strip away its dark, gothic exterior, at its heart you still have a story that can be told at any time. It's transcendental. It's a story that can't be restrained by time or space, and it will continue to be relevant for as long as humans are humans, I think. I think that's why Berserk has stayed so poignant in over 30 years of its production. Look, just give it a go, stick with it, at the very least read the Golden Age arc. You're probably just going to want to keep going though. The 97 anime is kind of a beauty within its own right. It's not without its problems, of course, but it's probably the best adaptation of the Golden Age arc anyone could ask for. The animation is a bit jank by today's standards, but there are still moments that are downright mesmerizing. I especially love the score. Some of the most beautiful music I've ever heard in my life comes from this anime. The anime does make some changes to the story, but not in a way that detracts from the story it wants to tell. The anime also focuses heavily on the dynamic between Guts and Griffith, and themes of friendship and dreams, and what lengths someone is going to go to achieve those dreams. And man, it is so awesome. The relationship that unfolds between Guts and Griffith is organic and explosive at the same time. There's always this electrifying tension between them, and when it finally culminates at the end of the Golden Age arc, all the pent-up energy between them is cut and it leaves you reeling. The anime does a great job capturing the sheer unbridled emotions that are caused by certain things that happen towards the end. I wish I could say more, but I won't. I just want you to enjoy it for yourselves. Credit to OLM where credit is due, cause they did an outstanding job. Watching the 97 anime, then picking up the manga from chapter 95 is completely legitimate, and also I think the most accessible way to get into Berserk. I'm just gonna say it again though, the 97 anime. Don't ask any more questions. Dark Souls. Everyone knows it, and pretty much everyone that plays it loves it, and it wouldn't exist without Berserk. Dark Souls is as close as it comes to being a Berserk game without actually being a Berserk game. Scenery, armor, weapons, aesthetics, monsters, ambiance, a lot of it is pretty much directly inspired by Berserk. There are even direct references and homage made to Berserk in some of the things I've mentioned above. The Katarina armor is just Bazuso's armor. Balder armor is just Guts armor in the Golden Age arc. I mean, just look at the bone wheel skeletons. Just come on. Artorias is inspired by Guts in Berserker form. This isn't a critique against Dark Souls, cause it just goes to show how beloved Berserk really is. For it to go on and inspire one of the biggest franchises in the gaming world is a true testament to how captivating it can be. Dark Souls is a love letter to Berserk, one that took years and years to develop, and I just kind of love it even more for that. Berserk came to me at kind of a stressful time in my life. There were a lot of things just coming together at once, and honestly it felt a bit overwhelming, but it was nice to have Berserk. It gave me something to immerse myself into, and witnessing Guts' journey unfold was nothing short of cathartic. I felt as if I had come along for the ride in some way. Guts has a lot of personal trauma to overcome, and over his character arc you see him evolve from this broken and destroyed, cynical asshole to someone more trusting, open, and compassionate towards his comrades. You see his process of healing, and I feel as if Guts' healing carries over to those that read this story. In some cathartic way, they heal alongside with him. I think that's what makes this story so special for so many. It's a beautiful thing to see someone start healing from being so broken. And even if Berserk is just a piece of fiction, the feeling of healing it can give you is definitely real and intensely personal. And I think all these things make Berserk beautiful. Hey, it's me, leaving you another awkward voicemail. Hope you enjoyed that video. I loved making it. I definitely think you should read Berserk. Also, I put out some new music, and I'm gonna include links to where you can stream it down below. I put a lot of work into it, so, you know, if you're interested in that kind of thing, then I would appreciate it if you checked it out. Oh, and I'm working on a full album, so that's cool. So, yeah, thanks for supporting everything I do. I really appreciate it. All right, I've overstayed my welcome. Thanks again. See you later. Goodbye.